an impressive First Nations and Pacifika performance had an underwhelming Lions sweating over the victory. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. Okay, so I'm aiming for this one to be fairly short. We're not going to go into huge detail, but we'll cover as many points as we can. So first off, not a brilliant performance from the Lions, and honestly not too many people putting a hand up for selection for that second test. Now, we know the way things go with Lions tours. People could end up in that 23 anyway and go on there and really impress and end up being like a key member, in the second and third test. But on this showing, again, not too many players really standing out in a good way. So let's just quickly talk about the scoring in the game. So early on, we actually have a yellow card for Riley for shoulder to head on Darcy Graham. Then, while he's in the bin, Lions attack up a scrum. Ben White to Owen Farrell, and then a dink kick from him. Osborne gets to the ball first and over to score. Lions then work space on the right. Good hands across the line, and Darcy Graham over in the corner. He looked decent until he had to go off injured. Lions then throwing it around in their own half. Kinghorn gets picked off by Riley, and he has a clear run over the line. Quick tap penalty, then gets FMP within 5 meters. Then they go to their pick and goes, and it was Uru, I think, who gets over to score. Nice power from him to get it down on the line. Then James Ryan goes to the bin because the Lions just giving away far too many penalties. Just before the break, then Kinghorn gets intercepted again. FMP break upfield, and only a decent scramble from the Lions prevent them actually leading at half time. Lions then in the second half, they move from Maul on the left, Farrell to Kinghorn, nice long pass out to Osborne. He's over for his second try. Van der Fleer then has a try chalked off for a knock-on in the build-up by Ringrose. Pressure in the 22 from the Lions, and Farrell puts Van der Merwe over to score in the corner. Then FMP finished the stronger of the two teams. Liotta forcing his way over with less than 10 minutes to go, but they can't really come up with that final try that would have given them a famous result. But certainly a famous performance. The first time we've seen this team, full time 24-19, Lions just about win. Okay, so the FMP I thought were impressive overall. Some real standout performers for them, and you had like Curtly Beale out there, like at 36 years old. I thought was fairly decent. We've seen Muirhead previously in the tour; he was good. Riley got his try there, but in the pack then you had Darcy Swain. I thought was good. Gamble was absolutely excellent. That guy, such a threat at the breakdown. And front row as well, I thought went well. You had Tupou, you had who was it, Lely, and then Paenga Amosa as well. Looked like the better of the two scrums, honestly. There, let's have a quick look at the stats, and then we'll talk briefly about the Lions as well. So it was 3 tries to 4, but the Lions really just about again shading it, and the fact that they missed the conversion on the last 2 tries, especially the last try, I thought it was a bit easier for Finn Smith, but he never really had that one coming on target. But it opened the door for FMP to almost clinch it there at the end. Then possession 53% to 47 in favour of the Lions, and territory 66 to 34. But the second half, FMP had more of the ball, but just less of the territory really. Clean breaks 12 to 6 in favour of the Lions. Defenders beaten 17 to 11, and then offloads 11 to 1 in favour of the Lions as well. Then set piece in the scrums, FMP went 9 from 12, but again they were really the ones winning penalties on their own feed. And then Lions went 3 from 3, but not really a weapon in terms of their, they're on the bone ball in the scrum. Lineouts then 19 from 20 for F&P and 22 from 26 from the Lions. Mostly the Lions lineout was pretty decent. Just a couple of kind of misses here and there. And F&P definitely stole at least one from that as well. And then 1 yellow card each. 13 penalties to 8 penalties for the Lions. So at least the Lions can have that discipline on their side. But they gave a lot of those penalties away in that little batch there that ended up with James Ryan going to the bin. Okay, so let's just talk then about the Lions team. Let's quickly run down their lineup. So first of all, Blair Kinghorn intercepted twice, but 106 meters for 15 runs is decent. He only had 1 tackle to make and he missed it, so not great like defensively. And that's where you would have thought if he was gonna oust Keenan for that fullback spot was because like Keenan's real blot on his copybook was the try there where he got the ball stripped off, and so the fact that Kinghorn wasn't great defensively in the game, not really good for him, but it could be a case of he just had to prove his fitness and he'd be involved in the next test. We don't know the thinking of the coaches, but I don't think on this performance certainly he would be forcing his way into the team. But these players haven't been picked just on one single performance, so we'll have to kind of watch the space for that. Darcy Graham then got a try, 53 meters from 5 runs, didn't make any tackles. Unfortunately for him, he's very injury prone, and when he's fit, he's firing, he's brilliant, but may not see him again on the tour now. That he's picked up an injury. Jamie Osborne then in the centres, so 9 runs, 59 meters, 2 tries, 3 from 3 tackles. Decent. He's one of the guys, so like Darcy Graham, just called up as injury cover, and you kind of wonder, unless there are a lot of injuries in the squad, is he really going to be considered for the match day 23? For me, if he was going to be in consideration, 23 on his back would be perfect. He can cover so many positions. Next in, Owen Farrell, a guy who potentially could be involved in the match day 23. I'm sure he's got a lot of kind of detractors out there that wouldn't be happy about it, but you have to look at his performance here. He's one of the better performers for the Lions. Maybe not as good as Osborne overall, but it was a decent game, and again, he's a class player. So 14 meters from 10 runs, 5 from 7 tackles from him, but just pulling the strings, and a lot of it kind of try assists from him as well, or at least decent impact in the build up to tries too. And we haven't really seen from Marcus Smith in the first test or Finn Smith in this test, somebody at 10 other than Russell who can kind of guide the team home, when their backs against the wall. I think both, Finn Smith and Marcus Smith are good players to have if things are going well, or maybe, you want something different, trying to chase the game. But, maybe Owen Farrell could be an option on the bench there, replace him 10, and the fact he can cover 12 as well, would be decent. It would mean you'd have to have somebody else there covering 15, or you're going to bring Kinghorn straight into the starting 15, and then you don't have to worry too much about covering that from the bench. Duhan van der Merwe then, we got a try, 11 runs, 44 meters, 3 from 3 tackles, but again, we talked about it before. Unless the Lions really want to fundamentally change the way they play, under Farrell, I can't really see him getting put in. He's not going to be put out of position on the right wing. He's a left winger, so you expect then that James Lowe really is going to stay there, just because of his ability to kick from hand, and obviously other things as well. But I think that's his point of difference in terms of Van der Merwe can't give them that. And yeah, unless they want to really change things up, can't see him force his way in. Finn Smith then, decent performance, 4 runs from 20 meters, 14 from 14 tackles, so solid defensively. But again, it's more that kind of in that second half where F&P were coming back at the lines, wasn't able to give them enough control really to see out the game comfortably. And that's really what you're looking for in the test. You've got 2 options really off your bench, right, for your placement 10. Either someone to come on and change the game for you, but if you've got Russell starting, like if you're looking for a bit of magic, well, that's what Russell can give you. And the other option is someone who can just kind of help you ease your way to that finish line. And I don't think, at least at this stages of his career, he's really got that in his locker enough to maybe force his way in. But, it depends really what your options are in terms of who's he getting selected against. If it's against Marcus Smith, I think he has a decent shout. But if you're throwing Owen Farrell in that mix there, again, maybe that experience there and the ability just to, maybe better game management towards the end of the game could sway things for him. Ben White then looked very lively. Decent, option, I think, instead of Mitchell on the bench. But did Mitchell do so poorly in the first test that you want to switch him out? We'll have to see. If they're going to make changes, they're going to want to make some changes, obviously, freshen things up. Maybe a couple of players that are injured or whatever. But you don't want to make wholesale changes either and kind of lose some continuity. So yeah, maybe an option there if they want something different off the bench at 9. Pierre Schoeman then, decent defensively, 8 out of 8 tackles. Thought he was very aggressive at the breakdown as well. Not so much though in his carrying, which is one of his kind of, USPs. 9 runs for 5 meters isn't brilliant from him. And the fact that, again, they struggled a bit in the scrum, difficult to see him really forcing his way into 23. Jamie George, though, thought he went well. Obviously was part of that poor scrum, but line-out overall was decent. He was good around the park. 18 meters from 5 runs, 12 from 13 tackles. Certainly, Kelleher, I thought, didn't give much impact off the bench. And if you wanted someone to maybe switch him out, like Jamie George, one of the few players I think that put his hand up. Finlay Bealham then, 2 runs for 2 meters, 5 from 5 tackles. Again, scrum not going great. I think maybe injury he could force his way in. I think earlier on in the tour, he's one of these players who maybe had in that middle bit at the start of the tour, his stock went up, but then, now it's kind of gone down a little bit and not really impressing enough, I don't think, to dislodge Stewart from that bench. James Ryan then, McCarthy out injured, but Ryan, not really much impact in the carry, and 2 from 3 tackles, got a yellow card. Yes, he does a lot of one-seam work, but not really standing out in terms of slotting straight into the starting second row. I don't think so. Scott Cummings, though, I thought he was decent. 6 meters from 7 runs, not brilliant, but 7 from 9 tackles. He looked busy around the park, very disruptive as well, and just seemed to be at key moments involved in things as well. So maybe someone, if you could maybe see Chesham being promoted into the second row, and then maybe Cummings coming onto the bench, something like that. Jack Morgan then, not as brilliant as we've seen him before on the tour. 14 meters for 7 from 7 runs, 9 from 9 tackles, but again, didn't really kind of, he stood out already on the tour, but that wasn't enough to get him in the initial 23. So he's one of those players. I think if he gets a chance, if he gets on that bench, or if he gets even the starting team, then and he performs well, he'll keep his place. But it seems to be difficult for him just to get in to the 23 at the moment. Josh van der Fleur, fairly similar for him as well, like 32 metres from 6 runs, had that try chucked off, 15 from 16 tackles, really good link player, but doesn't seem to be in favour in terms of getting in that 23. And very much like Morgan, if he was there, it'd be hard to dislodge him, but it's also difficult for him to force his way in. Henry Pollock, not as kind of flash as we've seen it before. 6 metres from 6 runs, 6 from 6 tackles. Wasn't really a game for him to stand out here. But the Lions didn't have much impact in their carrying off the bench, so potentially could be a shout for getting into the starting team. Then off the bench, then not really much. Like, we're not going to go like too much into things like Ashman, Sutherland, and Clarkson. They did all right when they come on, but I don't think any of them are really in contention for test, at least at this stage. Similar Gregor Brown, Ben Earl obviously been involved. 12 metres from 3 runs, 6 from 6 tackles from him. Then Alex Mitchell, I don't think he got on in the game actually. Marcus Smith, made 1 run for 20 metres, decent, but 1 from 2 tackles, wasn't great. And again, for him, it's about what they're looking for on the bench. So it's not really, I don't think it's really about his performance. It's more about what the coaches are looking for from their 22 on that bench, and whether he can provide it or not, or whether either Finn Smith or Owen Farrell fits that bill better. So it's almost not about performance at this stage. Unless you have a stinker, you're going to be in that conversation, but it's more about your attributes, I think. And Gary Ringrose there, 23 metres, 13 runs, 3 from 3 tackles from him. Looked a little bit rusty maybe at times, but wasn't enough to take that 23 short away from Aki. For me, I think he does offer you more options off the bench than Aki does, and he might be in there. So I think, a lot of these guys, other than really injuries, were playing for bench spots anyway. And I wouldn't be surprised really if they did change things up with maybe 3 or so players coming onto the bench, and maybe 1 in. Hopefully McCarthy is fit, but if he's not, maybe 1 player coming in to the starting lineup to replace him, and maybe 1 other change in the back 3. But again, no wingers really put their hands up in this, other than Darcy Graham, who unfortunately won't be available anyway. So not a brilliant performance from the Lions. First Nations and Pacifika can be very proud of their performance in this game as well. But let me know what you think down in the comments.